The first sign was the HOA letter. A formal complaint had been filed against me for a violation of the community covenants. The violation cited was an unapproved exterior modification, specifically a satellite dish on the side of my house that was not in compliance with the neighborhood's aesthetic guidelines. I didn't have a satellite dish. I walked around the entire perimeter of my house twice. There was no dish. There had never been a dish. I read the letter again, and at the bottom, in small print, it said the complaint had been filed by an anonymous neighbor and that the HOA was required to investigate all formal complaints, regardless of source. I called the HOA. The woman on the phone was apologetic, but firm. She said the inspector would come out on Friday. She said if no violation was found, the complaint would be dismissed and no further action would be taken. The inspector came on Friday. He walked around my house, found no satellite dish, and left. I thought it was over. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived. A new complaint, a different violation. This time, it was an unleashed dog seen running through neighbors' yards. I didn't own a dog. The third letter came 10 days after that, then a fourth, then a fifth. Each one a different complaint, each one false, each one filed anonymously, each one requiring an inspection and a response. By the 8th letter, I understood. Someone in my neighborhood was running a campaign against me. They were filing complaints they knew would be dismissed, but they were filing them constantly, knowing that the process itself was the punishment. I didn't know who, I didn't know why. I just knew it wasn't going to stop on its own. We had moved into the neighborhood 3 years earlier. A quiet street, mostly older couples, a few young families. We had been welcomed warmly. We had attended the block parties. We had signed the holiday cards. I worked from home. My wife worked at a hospital across town. We had one kid, a daughter in middle school, and we kept to ourselves in the way that suburban families do. Friendly waves, occasional conversations at the mailbox, never anything more involved than that. The neighbor on our left was a man named Doug. He had lived in his house for almost 40 years. He was retired in his early 70s and spent most of his days working in his yard or sitting on his porch with a cup of coffee. We'd spoken to him a handful of times. He had seemed perfectly pleasant. The neighbor on our right was a woman named Patricia. She was younger, maybe in her late 50s, and she lived alone. We'd spoken to her even less than we had spoken to Doug. She kept her blinds closed during the day and rarely came outside. About 6 months before the HOA letters started, we had done some work on our yard. We had taken down a row of overgrown hedges that had been blocking the view from our front windows, and we had replaced them with a lower decorative fence. The work had been approved by the HOA in advance. We had filed all the paperwork. We had used a licensed contractor. The hedges had been on the property line between our yard and Patricia's. Removing them had opened up a clear sight line between our front porch and her front windows. She had not said anything to us about the work before, during, or after. We had not thought twice about it. We should have. By the 10th complaint, my wife was the one who started keeping track. She made a spreadsheet. Date of complaint, alleged violation, date of inspection, outcome. Every single one had been dismissed. Every single one had required a response from us, an inspection, sometimes a letter from our attorney. The pattern in the spreadsheet was clear. The complaints came in clusters, 3 or 4 in a single week, then a quiet period of 2 or 3 weeks, then another cluster. They were all anonymous. They were all unfounded. They all referenced things that someone with a clear view of our front yard, our driveway, and our front door would be in a position to fabricate. My wife suggested we install a security camera, not a hidden one, a visible one, mounted on the front of our house, pointed out toward the street. She thought it might serve 2 purposes. It would document what was actually happening at our house in case we needed to defend against future complaints, and it might, just by being there, make the person filing the complaints more cautious. We installed it on a Saturday. By Monday, a new complaint had been filed. The complaint alleged that We had installed a camera that was pointed at a neighbor's bedroom window in violation of privacy guidelines. The camera was pointed at the street. The HOA inspector confirmed it. The complaint was dismissed. But the timing told us something we hadn't been sure of before. Whoever was filing the complaints had a clear, immediate view of our front yard. They had noticed the camera within 48 hours, and they had filed a complaint about it. They were watching us. We pulled the footage. From the first week, the camera had been active. We watched it on fast forward, looking for anyone paying unusual attention to our house. There was Patricia, standing at her front window behind her closed blinds with her phone held up against the glass, taking pictures of our yard. Multiple times a day. The footage showed her doing it on Sunday morning, on Monday afternoon, on Tuesday evening. The pattern wasn't random. She was photographing our property and using the photos to fabricate complaints. But footage from inside our property looking out wasn't enough on its own. We needed to connect her to the complaints themselves. My wife went to the HOA in person. She brought the spreadsheet. She brought the camera footage. She brought a printout of every dismissed complaint over the previous 14 months. She didn't accuse anyone. She just laid out the pattern. 23 complaints in 14 months. All anonymous, all dismissed, all consistent with someone who had a continuous view of our front yard from a specific angle. She asked the HOA whether they had any obligation under their own bylaws to investigate a pattern of complaints that appeared to be filed in bad faith. She asked whether they had any record of who had filed the complaints. Even if those records weren't shared with the accused, they might exist internally. The HOA director told her she would look into it. 3 weeks later, she called my wife back. She said she had reviewed the records. She said she could not legally share the names of complainants. But she said the HOA had a policy regarding repeated bad faith complaints, and that policy was now being applied. She said the complaints would stop. They did. The day of that phone call was the last anonymous complaint we ever received. What happened next? We learned in pieces. Patricia received a formal letter from the HOA notifying her that her complaint privileges had been suspended for 12 months due to a pattern of unfounded filings. The letter was confidential, but Patricia complained about it loudly to several people in the neighborhood. Word got around. A few months after that, her house went on the market. She moved out before the school year started. We never spoke to her, before or after. We learned later from Doug, who had known Patricia for years and who became a more talkative neighbor after she left, that the hedges had been the trigger. Patricia had grown up in her house. The hedges had been planted by her father when she was a child. She had watched us take them down through her front window, and she had decided, in some way that made sense only to her, that we had attacked her family. She had spent 14 months trying to make us leave. We had stayed. She had left instead. The camera is still on the front of our house. We never took it down. The footage from those 14 months is still saved on a hard drive in my office, in a folder labeled with her name. We never needed to use it for anything else. But I keep it anyway. If this story hit you, subscribe. Every case on this channel starts with trust and ends with the truth.